Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we've still got a few folks trickling in from the waiting room, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Katie Downey. I'm the Assistant Dean for External Relations for Merrill College. I just want to make a couple quick housekeeping announcements before we get started with our Dean's Update. We are going to be recording this and it will be available on the college's YouTube channel afterwards. We do encourage you to ask questions. You can put those in the chat. So I encourage you, if you have questions, either for our students or for Dean Dalglish, to put those in the chat. We're basically going to split into two sections here, starting with a couple of our students, and then Dean Dalglish will provide some general updates as well. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Dean Lucy Dalglish, who, as many of you may have seen, was honored last week as the Scripps Howard AEJMC Administrator of the Year. So we are very proud and happy to have her here with us at Merrill College, and that is quite an honor. So wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that tremendous honor that she received last week. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dean Dalglish.
Thank you, Katie. It's nice to see some faces I recognize there. Lucy Miller and Kelly Froelich, who are for our development staffers in Atlanta and New York. Regent Jeff Ganella, welcome. FQ, it's nice to see your face. Welcome back. And we have some former faculty and current faculty, Sue Kopen-Katzef and Mark Hyman. So welcome. I think people will be joining us as we go along. This has been, as you know, a crazy but interesting, and I think ultimately it will be a useful year. We've learned a lot about our faculty, a lot about our students, and a lot about technology. And nevertheless, we're looking forward to being on campus in the fall. I'd like to introduce and start out for the first half of the program, three of our outstanding students who are I'm going to have just a brief Q&A with them, and then I'm going to leave a little bit of time for you to ask them questions. And then at the top of the hour, I'll give you an update about what has been going on campus. And anyway, first we have Katie Marr, who is a junior broadcast student. Katie, you want to wave? Yeah. Kanita Iyer, who is a double major in journalism and government and politics, and she is a senior. And Jack Hogan, who is also a senior and is going to share with us a little bit of information, what it was like to be evacuated from Spain in a hurry last spring. So let's get started. Can each of you, let's start with Katie. Can you tell us just briefly, how did the pandemic affect you?
So I guess personally it affected me because I lived in university-owned housing. So I was pretty much kicked off last spring. I had to go home and do all my classes from home, and it wasn't the best learning environment for me. It was very hard for me to focus and dial in on things. But luckily this year I was able to move into an off-campus apartment. So I've been able to have my own workspace and do everything at my own pace. Pandemic obviously has affected a lot of us. I've had to live on the safer side of things because I have a high risk father, but luckily vaccinated now. So glad to be, at least have that on my side.
Good. Kanita, how about you?
Well, I'm glad Katie gets to be back on campus in the fall. I don't get to, so I'm jealous and sad about that. But like most students, I think the pandemic really took a toll on my mental health. There was so much fear of missing out about senior year. But I think just having since I'm a double major, having journalism classes be really flexible and just work so seamlessly online made it so much better. And I didn't feel super disconnected. It was still a very together learning environment, and I really appreciated that.
So Katie or Kanita, was that because the classes were smaller, or the teachers were more IT savvy, or they were more flexible, or
I think
Explain
it's
that.
both. I think it definitely helps that we have faculty who are working professionals in the industry, because journalism is all about adaptability and being flexible. So they were super, as soon as we went back home after spring break, they jumped right on board, and it hasn't stopped since then. And I think compared to government, in my government classes, it's larger. So everyone just has their cameras off. I don't really feel like as if I'm learning much, as opposed to journalism classes. Everyone has their camera on. We want to participate. We want to have those conversations. And, even though we're not physically like present together, it doesn't seem much different than it were to be if we were in the classroom.
Thanks. Jack, how about you?
I think the trickiest thing to navigate for me has been professional developments, being able to learn from my peers in the classroom, from fellow journalists in newsrooms, whether it's the Diamondback newsroom, Capital News Service newsroom, or any internships. Not being able to listen into interviews or turn to others in the newsroom to answer questions. That's also played into trying to build mentors. I think some of the closest mentors that I have at the school right now, I've never even seen in person. So finding ways to build those relationships has been tricky, especially when, at this stage, it's an integral part of when we're trying to transition into professionals. So that's definitely required some navigation.
So who over the past year has been involved in a Capital News Service project or newsroom? Okay, Katie, yeah, all three of you. Tell us what class you took and what that was like, getting your work published. Katie?
So I'm currently in the Broadcast Bureau full time. So I'm taking 9 credits worth of CNS right now. I'm actually literally I'm in DC right now in a car. That's why I'm in a car right now. And I'm doing my sports segment live from outside Capital One Arena. And I'm going to go do a story about fans coming back for the first time today. So I'm in a primetime example of that right now. But having CNS being in the Broadcast Bureau this semester it was a very last minute decision. Actually, I wasn't planning on taking it until fall of my senior year. But just the way things worked out last minute, Josh Madden, our assistant dean, and Mel Coffey, the director of the Broadcast Bureau, they were really helpful, and they accommodated me at the last second, and they brought me in because I've had experience with CNS in the past. But I'm very glad that I took it this semester because it's been my only in-person class. Because last semester I finished all my gen eds, didn't take a lot of journalism, but I'm just very glad that I'm able to go to the newsroom every Tuesday and Thursday, have in-person experiences, get to work with Mel and the other reporters, and then I'm an anchor and a sports anchor every Tuesday and Thursday, so I get to be in the studio still and have that experience. So I really don't feel like I was robbed of anything. Despite mostly everything being online, I'm really glad that CNS is in person. So I feel very fortunate that I took it this semester and I get to gain these experiences in a time where a lot of people might not be able to because of COVID.
Yeah. Kanita, how about you? What class did you take?
I've actually done a capstone every semester. So we were in the middle of doing the Baltimore reporting capstone, urban affairs reporting, when the pandemic hit. And so we had to finish our enterprise reporting from home. And I went back to New Jersey. So that was literally so many miles away, and I couldn't just drive up there. So I was just glad that we had fostered relationships with our sources on the ground. So they were willing to talk to us over the phone, Zoom call, and it turned out to be a great project. We focused on trauma in the city, and my specific group, we focused on how community barbershops serve as almost a non-traditional therapy forum. And then in the fall, I was in the Washington capstone with Jim Carroll, and it was election season, so that was great. It was mostly virtual, and I was glad, again, sources wanted to talk to us, but I also covered the election on the ground in Pennsylvania. That was exciting. And now I'm doing the first 100 days of Biden presidency, which is much easier because we just watch the broadcast every night and discuss. So there's less reporting and going out. So it just worked out. But I've just been really fortunate, and it worked seamlessly.
Great. Jack, how about you?
So I just wrapped up my reporting for the Annapolis Bureau on Thursday. it was certainly hard not being able to go to the State House and speak with lawmakers face to face, with lobbyists face to face. So there's definitely certain elements of reporting that required some finagling almost. I mean, really being able to build relationships with sources over the phone, coordinate with Karen Denny, who was completely overloaded with work at times, balancing such a large bureau. But I mean, it was great that the journalism school provided us with resources to cope. And I've been working out of the Howard Center in Knight Hall, which I'm in currently. But I mean, certainly it was adjustment. It was absolutely an adjustment.
Yeah. Now, over the last year, we've had to make some adjustments to our internship program and what we would recognize as an internship, and try to get as many students in as possible to online experiences. A lot of students last spring in particular had planned internships just dry up. Have any of you had gotten internship credit in the last year? Kanita, how did that work? And Jack, all of you. Okay. So what were you planning? What did you think you were going to do versus what you actually did? Kanita, let's start with you.
I'll let someone else go first because I actually didn't get credit. I had finished my credit during fall of 2019, so it didn't really affect me much.
How about you, Jack?
So I was fortunate enough to keep my internship with the Capital Gazette over the summer. But I mean, again, wasn't able to work out of Annapolis and was stuck in a basement reporting for 40 hours a week. It was a great experience, but like a lot of local news organizations, they were in a rough spot. I mean, I onboarded during a series of furloughs, and then by the end of the summer, the paper had lost their newsroom. So I was lucky to be able to keep the experience that I had qualified for and made some great relationships. But similar to the reporting that we've all done, it just requires some adjustment and really being able to be an independent worker, which did contribute to growth that probably wouldn't have otherwise come had we been able to lean on people in person.
How about you, Katie?
So my internship experience actually wasn't in the last year, but it's going to be this summer. I'm going to be an audience engagement journalist with the Howard Center for their newest special project, which I'm very excited about. It's going to be focused on examining how newspapers played a role in racial violence and lynchings in history, which is very kind of different from what I usually do. I'm usually in sports broadcasting, but I just felt really passionate about the project and I applied and luckily I got it. And the school has been really great about, usually they don't count anything on campus as an internship for the internship credit, but luckily they will be counting this for the internship credit. So I'm going to graduate. So I'm very excited about that because unfortunately broadcast internships were kind of robbed last summer and basically the past year because a lot of these broadcast newsrooms feel like if you can't be in person, it's not an experience. So it's been a little hard trying to find internships there, but a lot of them are confident that in the fall they'll be starting again. So very excited about those opportunities too.
Yeah, that is one of the things we made the decision to adjust. I think it'll be temporary. We're not going to count Merrill College experiences as internships forever, but it was one of the things we were able to do to make sure that enough of our students got an experience that it would work. Now, Jack, why don't you tell us something? You were in Spain last spring. Walk us through what happened.
It was totally wild being halfway around the world when things were developing. Once outbreaks began in certain countries, I think the group I was with got a sense that we might be sent home. And then the night that former President Trump imposed his travel ban, I think there was confusion about whether or not U.S. citizens would be able to make it back once it set. And it was 3 a.m. in Barcelona where I was when he made the announcement. So I had a roommate come running in, yelling at me to book a flight. And then there was kind of chaos. And so that was at 3 a.m. By 4 p.m., I was on a plane home. And it was only a week to finish up courses. The semester was scheduled to end early regardless. But it was kind of it was just a chaotic 24 hours to be able to get everyone out of there. The flight I was on was full of college students who had just kind of been ripped out of their study abroad experience. But I think all things considered, it went smoothly. And the country shut down or went into lockdown, I think 3 days after they cleared the program out.
Now, was it a University of Maryland sponsored program, or were you on some other sponsored program? Did Maryland get involved at all in getting you out of there?
No, and I think things just happened too quickly for the university to really take control of the situation. They offered like credits for flights that were paid for by students or their families, but I think the turnaround was just too quick for the university to be able to coordinate returning its students home.
Yeah, I think it depended on the country as well. We've got a few minutes left with our students. Does anyone in the audience have a question? The group is small enough that if you do, just raise your hand or put that cute little hand symbol up, and I can call on you. But in the meantime, I'm curious, those of you who are graduating soon, Kanita, what are your plans?
So I guess I haven't formally announced this, so exclusive, but I've accepted a position at CNN as a news associate. So I'll be joining in June.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Are you going to Atlanta?
No, DC Bureau.
Here, DC. Wonderful. How about you, Jack? What's on the horizon?
I'm still on the hunt. I've been doing a lot of networking and a lot of applying, a lot of interviews. So I'm still kind of in the middle of the process, but I have plans to stay in the Baltimore area with a friend, and I'm hoping to be able to find some employment that'll keep me in the DMV area for the foreseeable future.
Good. Did I see Tiffany? Did you want to ask a question, or were you just cheering somebody on?
Just cheering.
Just cheering.
Congratulations.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, talk to us a little bit about what it's like to be in a Zoom class. Talk a little bit about the difference between asynchronous and synchronous, and what you think worked better, and what did some of your teachers do in particular that made it easier for you to learn. Can we start with Katie?
Yeah, so prime example, so I'm kind of in all three options this semester because I have in-person CNS, and then I have a Zoom class of sports producing with Joe Yasharoff, and then I'm in a journalism statistic class, which is fully asynchronous. I honestly think it varies on the subject material. I've found the journalism statistic class to work very well asynchronously because I don't love math. There's a reason I chose journalism as my major. So I kind of like being able to do it on my own time. And our professor, his name is Tom Brune, he's very responsive, and he's very good about getting back to us and helping us, even though it's not an actual Zoom lecture. But then when it comes to a class like sports producing, I like that it's a small class of just like 12 students, and Joe likes us to all have our cameras on so we can feel like we're in class. And I really appreciate that because I get to feel like I'm obviously not there in person, but I get to interact with everyone and we get to have these open discussions. So I think it really depends on the subject material, but I'm glad that journalism classes are smaller to begin with. So it helps to feel like we're in class still, kind of.
Yeah. How about you, Kanita?
So I'm in the same statistics class as Katie, but I didn't know that because it was all online. It's been hard. I mean, similar, I'm not a math person, which is why I'm a journalism major. So I would have loved if there was, at least once a day we would meet. So I feel like I would grasp the material better. But again, Professor Brune is super responsive. So it works out. And with my other class, it's taught by Tom Batag, who is so amazing, one of my favorite professors I've had. And what he does, again, he likes the camera on, but he also sets up one-on-one meetings with us. about 3 times a semester. So we just met for the second or third time, and then he's always available too. So it really helps with mentorship, and he makes our mental health a priority. He starts off every call with, "How are you guys today?" We covered the Chauvin trial extensively, and that was really tough for the whole class to watch it play out in all the news every single night. So he made our mental health a priority, and he understands it's a pandemic. It's really tough. Circumstances are different. So he's very flexible with that. I think the whole class really appreciates it.
And how about you, Jack?
I think the thing that's helped most is just interest in the topics at hand. I was also fortunate enough to take Tom Bataille's class last semester, and I think just by nature of really loving the subject matter, I was able to focus. But when when the topic maybe is not news, or if you're taking a course that's for a second major or a minor, I think it is really hard to motivate yourself to stay focused for, in some cases, 2 to 3 hours for an online class. I think getting yourself in an environment that forces you to focus, separating your life from your courses and doing things in separate locations certainly helps, as does having your camera on, which forces you to be looking at the screen. But I think in a lot of cases, it just requires a much higher level of motivation as a student, and a self-motivation really, to be able to lock in for that long.
Well, now for our seniors, Kanita and Jackson, or I'm sorry, Jack, give us, we're going to have in-person commencement. The campus commencement will be splitting into 2 groups, and Merrill College is going to be with the colleges that are graduating at 11 a.m. I think on the 20th or the 22nd. And you'll each be invited to bring 2 guests. And I think you're going to be seated with your guests, and you're going to be scattered throughout the stadium. And anyone who graduated in 2020 is going to be invited to do the same thing. So are you guys going to come? Are you going to be there? Is this a big deal for your families to be able to have that in-person experience? Anyone?
I don't plan on going. I would have if Merrill College had an in-person graduation. That mattered more to me than like the main commencement. So I plan not to. It's a drive for me anyway, and have a really large family. So picking 2 people would be hard. So I'm avoiding it as per right now. But I might change my mind, because it is great that we're having at least some sense of normalcy.
Jack, how about you? Are you going to be there?
I will be there. I've been in the College Park area for the duration of the semester, and I think more than anything, I just want my parents to be able to partake in the ceremony and partake in kind of the end of college in any way that they can. So I'm happy that it's able to happen for them and for other parents and family members who will be there.
I'll just share with you guys the only complaints I have gotten in the last year, and the only pressure that I've received, and I know this is mostly true in the president's office too. It's not from our students. Our students have not complained about it, but boy, have we heard from your parents. They really, really wanted there to be some sort of an in-person commencement experience. So I hope you can make it and enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it, because unless people are wandering through Knight Hall, we really don't get to see that many of our students. And there are very few classes, most of them photography or videography or the broadcast bureau, that are meeting in person in the building. So it's wonderful to, it'll be so fantastic to be able to see people in the fall. But are there any questions before we let them go and get back to their studies from
Lucy?
anyone? Yeah.
Somebody
Katie?
sent me a question.
Sure.
Separately here. They'd like to know, how has this year, in regard to the Black Lives Matter movement and news coverage, influenced you and your perspective as a journalist over the past year and going forward?
Want to start with that?
Just to touch on that.
Katie, do you want to give that the first try?
Yeah, so I actually I'm also the executive producer of the Left Bench TV. And when it all started, we and a bunch of other sports media organizations, we all made statements actually to say like we stand with our Black reporters, our athletes, the entire community. We wanted to make sure that I felt like a lot of people were trying to draw a line between bias and unbiased. We just wanted to make sure people knew where we stood about that. And then when it came to stuff like CNS, I was in the newsroom when the Chauvin trial was complete and the verdict came out, and it came out at exactly like 5:15, I think, and we went live for our newscast at 5:30. So we had to add that in the very last second. So I got to see what that was like breaking news wise. But I also covered after the Atlanta shootings concerning the AAPI community, I covered the on-campus vigil that happened right after that. And I got to do a really great story about that for Capitol News Service about a month or so ago. So I think just the entire movement that we've had this almost past year, or influx in the movement that is, has really impacted how a lot of us are storytelling and being there for those voices and helping raise those voices. So I'm glad that I've gotten to be in this broadcast bureau and be a part of helping tell those stories and being a voice for them.
Kanita, how about you?
As a person of color, I think the protest, everything that went on just highlighted issues in the industry that were already present. And it was great that a lot of organizations came out and, you know, really reckon with themselves and how they, what they see as diversity and their own diversity practices. And I think, you know, even with CNS, a lot of, when we were having our orientation, there were some concerns about the social media policy. And so I actually sat with Marty Kaiser, with Mel, with Kathy Best, with the whole team. And, you know, we came up with a new social media policy that will really touch on this and how to be objective, but how to also, you know, be a person first. I think that's been really difficult for a lot of reporters. Again, I'm speaking from privilege too, but just this boundary, this line of, are you like being a person versus a reporter, and how you balance your own biases, and more than biases, your experience and how they influence you. So that has been great. And I think what I took away from it, from the internships I've had throughout this pandemic, I think what I've learned is that your experiences just make you a better reporter because you're more sensitive to a lot of different issues. And so the goal should be comprehensive reporting, not objective reporting. That's what I'm taking away from it. That was actually a quote said by Nicole Carroll of USA Today, who I had a chat with. So all credit to her.
Jack, how about you?
I think some of the points that Kanita was bringing up really resonated with what I've heard from my peers, and even the way I've kind of been processing everything is the events of the past few months seem to have reshaped the way that journalists may associate themselves with, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement, with Stop AAPI Hate. So I think it's great that there's kind of this reassessment again of how journalists should report on certain matters, but also even be parts of these types of movements. So it seems to be a real maybe inflection point for the industry regarding race.
Okay. Well, I want to thank our students for joining us. And I hope the rest of the semester finals start very, very soon. And I hope to hope to see you in the future. Katie Meyer, see you in the fall. And Kanita and Jack, it would be great if I could see you at commencement. Anyway, thank you very much. And we'll just continue with the rest of our program.
Lucy.
Yeah.
Lucy, it looks like Rosemary has a question really quick.
Oh, sure. I don't even see Rosemary. Where'd she go?
I'm here.
Oh, there. Okay, thanks. Got it.
And sorry, a vacuum cleaner just came into my space as you called on me.
Right.
I just wanted to ask the students what motivated you to study journalism? And now that you're deep into your studies or nearly done with your studies, is it what you thought it was going to be? And kind of generally, how are you feeling about the industry?
Kanita, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, so I known I wanted to be a journalist since I was 7 years old. And of course, at that time, I think what I thought of the industry was definitely with rose tinted glasses. It's different now, but I think the passion is the same. I wanted to tell stories that um, were underreported, I think, about minority communities, about how politics impacts them. That's my focus, politics. And I think in a lot of way you cover politics as if it's abstract, if it's almost as a game and they're players, like that's because it's such a competitive field, but they have real world implications. And that should really be stressed. And that is what my passion is. And as far as the industry, I touched upon it a little bit earlier, but it's changing. And I'm so glad to see it changing, more opportunities created for people of so many different backgrounds, not just race, but economic, just the fact that, we're not Ivy League students, but we get great opportunities. That wasn't necessarily true a lot of years ago. So yeah, I'm glad to see it changing, and I'm glad to be in this pipeline that produces great journalists for the future.
Thanks. Jack, how about you?
So I didn't realize I wanted to be a journalist until my sophomore year, maybe of school here. Coming out of high school, I hadn't written for my school paper, and I think I stumbled into this more than anything. But through the experiences I've had, I've kind of doubled down on wanting to go into the field. But I just based on a lot of conversations I've had, I understand that some of the changes within the industry aren't always great. I know that there's not a lot of money in print. I know that local news organizations are closing all over the country. I know that especially entry-level reporters receive very low pay. Hours are brutal. But I think the reason I want to go into this mainly is just because of the people that I've been surrounded by in the journalism school, in my internships and other reporting, and the people that I get to speak with as a reporter, the conversations I get to have. So I understand that these changes, many are for the better, but I mean, the other thing is that this is a struggling industry in a lot of regards. But it's the people that kind of motivate me, give me hope to want to go into this, and also hope that this is an industry that's going to prevail.
Thanks. And Katie, how about you?
Yeah, so I didn't decide I wanted to be a broadcast journalist until I was about my junior year of high school. I was never really into sports, and my dad was watching Good Morning Football on NFL Network. And I saw Kay Adams, who is the only female host on the show. She was leading the show, and she's sitting at a table of men and she's commanding the room. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the entire world. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so I started looking at journalism schools. I always knew I wanted to be a sports reporter from then on. And then I started to really just divulge myself into learning everything I could about sports. And now sports are my favorite thing in the world. Football is my favorite thing in the world. So I've always known that I wanted to do this ever since then. And through gaining experience, I joined the left bench when I was a freshman, and I've worked my way up to executive producer, and I get to cover huge games, and I get to do sports for CNS. And the reason I'm so confident that this is what I want to do is because every single time I think there's a difference between when I'm anchoring the desk at CNS and when I'm sports anchoring. I'm so happy when I'm sports anchoring, and then when I'm at the desk, I'm kind of a little more chill, but I'm just so excited about what I'm talking about. And my favorite thing in the world is to be on the sidelines of a Maryland football game, shooting the entire game and doing my stand-up after and talking to athletes and telling their stories. So I know it's what I want to do because I'm just so happy when I talk about sports and I get to cover sports.
That's about the best endorsement for the Povich Center that I could imagine. I could not have scripted that any better, Katie. Great job.
That's awesome. For those of you who don't know, the Left Bench is a student-run broadcast and online news platform it's basically an online platform that is created by 3 students about 7 or 8 years ago. And each year a new class takes over as being the managers of it. And we facilitate it, but the college doesn't control it. The students decide how it's going to work. It's like the Diamondback in that sense. And it's provided incredible opportunities for our students who are interested in sports and other students from across campus as well. All right, now if there are no other questions, Katie, anything Katie Downey. Am I missing anyone?
I don't
No?
think so. I think we're set to move on.
All right. Thank you very much, Kanita and Katie and Jack, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having
There are a handful of things that I wanted to just update you about, and then leave it open for you to ask questions about some operations at the college. Of course, you know that last week Daryl Pines was inaugurated as president of the University of Maryland. He made clear that he's very competitive, that he is going to focus on innovative research and raising lots of money for research. He also made it clear that his #1 priority is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that he's made probably $100 million he expects to spend over the next 10 years on recruitment and retention of faculty of color. And we're starting to participate in that. We actually had some of this we're not going to be able to take advantage of for a year or two because of budgeting issues. It didn't quite hit with our hiring cycle. But we have one visiting assistant professor job that is open that I will be hiring. The interviews are going on via Zoom this week and next. I can report that all 4 finalists for the job of professor of race and the media, all 4 of them are Black. And they will be added to our list of new Black professors who've joined us in the last 2 years, including Connie Ford, Deneen Brown, and Mel Coffey, and I probably am forgetting somebody. So of course, hiring isn't everything. You still have to come up with programming. We, I hope to be able to get approved a budget for a staff position that will focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that person will be responsible for what President Pines calls onboarding. He wants every single faculty, staff, and student on this campus, the month they join, they will be oriented into this onboarding program so that they feel welcome and included. And we've been doing some exercise, some activities toward that end already this year. But as you might imagine, they've been done mostly online. So any hiring in the short term there will be a substantial focus on hiring underrepresented minorities. There will be a heavy emphasis on recruiting students of color. And there will be a heavy emphasis on inclusive programming and services so that everyone feels that they are part of the University of Maryland and Merrill College. On a couple of other announcements that you may have seen in the news, Chancellor Perman announced last week that everyone who's coming in the fall, and we expect to be here 100%, anyone who was teaching in person before the pandemic will be teaching in person when we come back in the fall. Everyone who comes there's an expectation you will have been vaccinated unless you have a bona fide documented excuse. We also finally have had a vaccination clinic opened on campus in conjunction with Safeway. And as of this week, they are allowing family members of faculty, staff, and faculty and staff to be vaccinated here as well. So we're in a much better place than I thought we were going to be. We have some, we're in addition to the new tenure track position in race and the media, we are hiring a broadcast production lecturer, someone who can work with our Capitol News Service, who is a teacher, as well as someone who's familiar with all broadcast technology. and they will be teaching production class, which our students have been crying for. There are a lot of jobs in broadcast production. And we called off that search last year when the budget cuts hit us, and we knew that we would not be able to teach that class because we couldn't cram all of those students into such a small space. The university was not going to let us teach that class in person no matter what. So we held off on making that hire. We also have been granted some money to hire one more professional track faculty member. It was some money that President Hogan and the legislature had made available in the area of data science. And we are hiring a data scientist journalist, a data journalist, to come in and work with Sean Mussenden and Adam Martin and Alex Piles to teach in the area of data journalism, whether that's data analytics, whether that's web scraping, audience analytics, any one of a number of those things. But for the very first time, for any of our courses that are related to data, we have a waiting list. And let me tell you, that is remarkable, it's important, and it's very crucial to our students getting jobs, because those are the students who are getting hired first. Anyone who knows how to manipulate data in some way. Broadcast newsrooms are looking for them. Traditional newsrooms are looking for them. Innovative new newsrooms and startups are looking for those people. So it's really great to see the demand catch up and exceed our capacity. We will figure out ways to make sure that those students are exposed to data. Some of you have been to what had been we were subletting space in the Reagan building from the business school. And our Capital News Service Washington, D.C. Bureau was housed in the first floor down in the, what did they call it, atrium or concourse or something like that, of the Reagan building. And it was nice space, but the business school's lease ran out, and we didn't need all of the business school space, and it was quite pricey. And so the university went out searching on our behalf, and they came up with a fantastic space in what's called the United Methodist Building, which is a wedge-shaped building that dips down, I think it's Maryland Avenue. But anyway, the Supreme Court is out one door, and the Hart and Russell office buildings and the Senate office building complexes is out the other door. So it's a private building wedged in, and if you go out that corner door in the front, you're looking right at the Capitol. And it's a very short walk away. Of course, we had to go out, we had to clear the National Guard to go looking at this property. Several of us, we had to get approval to go in. We were escorted and looked at it, but the fences and the razor wire have started to come down around there. And hopefully in the fall, our Washington, D.C. Bureau will be in that building. One of the other fantastic things about that building is for $100, we can rent one of several large gathering rooms on the main floor. There are conference rooms, there's an auditorium, there's even a chapel. And it will be available to us. We just have to give them notice and pay for the security guard to stay late. It's a fairly easy walk from the Union Station metro station. And we're very, very excited to be able to give our students this Capitol Hill experience, because it just doesn't get any better than that. It's actually closer to the Supreme Court and the Capitol than, either of the House or Senate office buildings. It's pretty cool. And I think Katie just put the link in the chat if you want to take a look at it. And I'm hoping that we can have an alumni event there next year. Take advantage of it. I think a lot of our alums will find that very interesting. And I think it's probably the thing I can think of that's it's closest to is Jeff Canella's office building. If you're still in the same general area, Jeff, it's an easy walk. I think, one other announcement. you'll see it in the newsletter that we sent out to faculty today. There's a program called the Dow Jones Newspaper Fund program where they take students in the summer. It's a competitive fellowship program. And we've been pretty lucky to get one or two students who are placed around the country as part of this internship program. It came out the other day, the 30-some students who got these fellowships for the summer. It was announced the other day, we had 7. We had 7 of them, and no other school had more than 4. And when you're in a situation where, as an entity, everybody around here always asks me, where is Philip Merrill College of Journalism ranked? Because everybody else on campus gets ranked by US News and World Report. We don't. So you take all these little measurements, and that is a really, really important important measurement of our success, to have 7 students who have won those prestigious summer fellowships. And before I see if you have any questions, I just want to give some credit to my faculty and staff. Throughout this entire experience, they have been magnificent. The staff, even though there are some colleges on this campus where nobody has set foot in the building since last March, our staff has been on a rotation, and everybody who's on the staff has been here at least, like, this is my week to be the administrator in charge. So Raphael has a team, Raphael Lorente has a team, Josh Madam has a team, I have a team. And one of those teams has been in this building every day since the fall semester. Folks like Clint Bucco are here on an almost regular schedule to take care of IT services. Bill Parker has been here almost every day to make sure that UMTV is up and running. And we have not missed a beat. Then there's my faculty. When we decided, when we were told everybody was going online, nobody panicked. Well, a few of them panicked. But I had a handful of faculty members who stepped up, and even though they'd never done anything like this before, they said, okay, we're just going to get it done. And quite a few of them got grants over the summer. God bless our former provost, Mary Ann Rankin, who came up with the idea of taking some of the government money that came in to give small micro grants to faculty members to spend the summer to figure out the best way to teach our students in the fall. And I can tell you from talking to deans all over the country, virtually no other university did that. And she had the foresight to do it. And so by the end of the summer, our faculty and our adjuncts had been going to almost weekly Friday seminars on how to teach online. They shared information, they shared best practices. They're still meeting every other week to evaluate what works and what doesn't work. They have been amazing. So Raphael Lorente and my associate dean, and our Sarah Oates, our professor and senior scholar, have led that initiative, and they just won't let anybody drop behind. And the first semester we got some complaints, but when we did, we worked one-on-one with the faculty members who were having a hard time teaching online. And everybody has been improving steadily. And I'm incredibly proud of what we've been able to accomplish, both on the staff side and on the faculty side. I would never want to do this again, obviously, as long as I live. But we came through this, I think, as more of a team. It's really amazing when people run into each other in the hallway here. Oh my God, it's been so long since I've seen you. How are you doing? It has contributed to, I think, more of a team feel. And I am just so gratified that nobody, and I mean this, nobody has whined about anything. And I know from talking to other deans on campus, they've not been blessed with the same experience. So we've got a few minutes. I'd be delighted to take any questions that you might have.
Hey, Lucy.
Yeah, Frank.
Knight Hall opened in 2010 when I left, and I was involved in the building project. That's my hard hat up on the shelf above me there. Anyway, my question, how's Knight Hall holding up? Space okay? Any construction issues? It's been 11 years now.
You know, this building is wonderful. Over the years since I've been here, we've moved walls a little bit now and then, but we still have room for people. We were able to create the Howard Center space out of the former NABJ space when they decided that they didn't need quite as much space. The way the construction works, it's not that hard to knock down a wall and reconfigure things. So we've done that a handful of times. I can tell you this coming year, social distancing was going to be tough. And if they were to tell us that we're going to have to socially distance our classes in the fall, we're going to have trouble because our computer labs are geared for a teacher and 18 students. And if they tell us that we have to put 6 feet between our students, well, that's just not tenable. One thing we did do, Frank, is we turned the bubble into our biggest classroom for this year and used it mostly for photo and video classes because just coincidentally, the way that room is configured made it very, very easy to socially distance students. Now, I think we're going to continue to use it as a classroom this year, but then my hope is that the following year, we go back to turning it over to our students. But it has worked very, very well as a socially distanced classroom. One thing that happened was because the university took over control of our Herblock room, which is that glassed in room next to Eaton Theater that has an exterior door and then glass right by the elevator. And the university decided we weren't using that enough and they needed more space. So they took over control of it, which means if we have not booked a classroom in there, they can take it. I'm not real happy about that, but they did that to every college to a certain extent to identify spaces. Ironically, I really didn't notice this, but that has turned out to be our toughest classroom to schedule. And when I asked about it, it was either fear of being in a glassed-in room like that, or they didn't like the lack of privacy in that room. I love doing things in that room. It wouldn't bother me at all. But that has become our toughest room to schedule. And I think they also think that students can get distracted from being able to see what's going on in the atrium. But other than that, there's really no other issues that we've been having. The building is still coveted by almost everybody else on campus, and not because it has the latest whiz-bang stuff, but because it's just such a comfortable building to be in. I should tell you that God bless Ralph Crosby, who was the donor who sponsored the Ralph Crosby class of 56 atrium. Ralph gave us another generous grant. And so we've upgraded all of the TVs in the public spaces in the buildings. We've bought a new trophy case that'll be by the elevators because we're running out of space for trophies. We've gotten so many lately. And the other thing that we'll be doing with that contribution is the big painting of Reese Cleghorn that had been at the base of the staircase. We've moved Reese. He's now in the Reese Cleghorn room, and we're going to use that wall for our Hall of Fame. So you'll be hearing more about the Hall of Fame. Anyone else have any questions? Sue. Unmute, Sue.
Sorry, I should know
Yeah.
better.
There you go.
I know that even while I was still there, we were working with blended classes. And this is sort of the ultimate end of blending the world. But we'd also talked about ways to expand to perhaps offer graduate classes for those who may not want to come to class. So this has really been a test of how far you can push that. Are you all thinking down the road to maybe expanding on this for master's programs to do this kind of thing?
Interesting question. Yes, we have been approved to offer a data journalism master's degree that will be, you'll be able to take the entire thing online. So students from North Carolina, if you've got a job as a reporter in Springfield, Illinois, or Austin, Texas, and you think to advance in your career or to even get a job, you need a background in data journalism, you'll be able to enroll in our master's program and take it entirely online. You'll also be able to do it in person if you want to, but it will be done in conjunction. Half the classes will be with taught by iSchool professors, the other half will be taught by us. So we think that data scientists who want to learn something about journalism will be attracted, or about storytelling really, will be attracted to this program. And we think that journalists who know they need more data will be attracted to this program. We're also working on a 4+1 program with the iSchool. What that means is you get an undergraduate degree in one of those disciplines and then stick around for one more year and get a master's degree in the other discipline. That one's going to take a little bit longer to pull off, but the discussions are going really, really well.
One other question, I'm curious as to whether
Yeah,
you
sure.
followed through with, I guess it was the University of Maryland Law School. There was some talk about doing some joint class work or something as an advanced degree, and maybe that went nowhere, but I was just curious about that.
I think the leadership changes at both of those campuses have kind of led that to stall, but there is, I'm seeing some reinvigoration of the Empower program, which is the program that encourages, by providing a little bit of money, programs with colleges in Baltimore and colleges in College Park. And when we have done something in the Empower program, it's been with the law school. So that one is, you know, we're trying to keep an eye on where the demand is. And the demand clearly is in data right now. There's just no question. So that's where we've decided to focus. Yeah. Anyone else?
It looks like Rosemary has a question.
Oh, sure.
I'm curious about enrollment. I keep hearing from my friends who have students applying to college that applications are up as much as 30% because of the changes in admissions requirements. And I know things have been trending really positive for the school over the last few years. And I'm just wondering if that's been impacted by COVID at all.
Not so much COVID. There were so many, we don't honestly, we'll know by the end of the week where we're sitting. But this has been a strange year for so many reasons. I was on a call with the Big Ten journalism deans 2 weeks ago, and some of the schools in the Midwest, Michigan State and Iowa in particular, were saying that they were expecting overall much lower enrollments university-wide. We honestly don't know what's going to happen here because this was the first year and this was planned. We went to what they call the Common App. So you fill out the one application form and you can send that thing to 40 schools if you want to. So we joined that. Then we dropped the SAT, ACT requirement, which we know led more students to apply to more schools. And then COVID hit. And the university, because of the Common App, they were planning to, they typically give us 325 students. They gave us, I think, 375 this year. When you use the Common App, because students are applying to so many more schools, your yield is going to be lower. And we honestly don't know what that yield is going to be looking like. Last Friday, I heard people on campus were a little bit panicked, but then by yesterday, things had picked up a bit. So we're all really anxiously awaiting to see how things were going to go. I'm having a little bit of trouble. We have gotten less financial aid for our students this year than we have in the past from the campus. So I have used about, I think I 160,000 or so dollars that I've given. It's very, very, very hard to yield out-of-state students in a situation like that when there's no financial aid for them. And this year, once again, 71% of our applicants were from out of state. And that is like 35 or 40 percentage points higher than almost anybody else on campus. So we have a weird problem that almost nobody else has. So we're working very, very hard. I've got a real go-getter recruiting coordinator named Terrence Britt, and we've been on these students saying, hey, we want you. We really, really, really want you. And we're sending them care packages. We're trying to, like I said, I took, actually it was largely a contribution from the Merrill family that we're throwing at scholarships for some of these out of state, not modest, we're talking modest size scholarships. But we know that with out of state students, money counts. And we're up against some other weird dynamics. For one thing, the University of Missouri this year decided to waive out of state tuition. So anyone from out of state who goes to Missouri gets to pay in-state tuition. Well, that wasn't good news for us because they are a really big, very prominent journalism school. So I don't know, Rosemary, next Monday I'll have a much better idea of what's going on, and so will everybody else on campus. But I do know that over the next year, we're going to be working much harder to attract transfer students, both from within, students who first enrolled in letters and sciences and were not committed to a major yet. We're going to make it easier for them to transfer in. And we're also going to work more with some of our community colleges. Because we're an accredited school, we can't just say, if you take journalism at Montgomery College, it will just wave in and you don't have to take reporting 201 here. Our accreditors won't let us do that. But we think there are some things we can do to work with those schools, like teach our grammar, spelling, and punctuation class in those schools. So they'll at least have that class when they come here. And we want to do some more things to make those transfer students feel a bit more welcome. Some students can come here and take a test, like Anna Rundle, one of our former teachers, is heading the journalism program there. And so when she sends us a student, we're pretty confident that they might do pretty well on our placement test. Other schools just don't quite have the curriculum that Anna Rundle does. So we're in the process of evaluating all of that. We were actually doing that, start planning to do that for last year, and they just we got a little distracted. But we're trying to build enrollment any way we can.
Thank you for that, and good luck.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, call me next Monday. These kids, they're just so fickle, everybody, we got, what was it? Some crazy number. Our number of students we admitted, we got like almost 50% more students who applied than ever have. And we think that's because of the Common App, but we don't really know.
Right.
So the folks who are planning dormitories and all of that, everybody's just kind of, going, who are we going to get? Let's just take a wild guess here. After this year, we'll have a better idea because we'll have been through it.
Right.
Anything else? Well, I think we've gone past our allotted hours. So nice to see you folks. And thanks for tuning in. Katie and Olivia and Josh Land, I think, have just sent out another newsletter. Katie, is that right? Yeah.
Yes, the monthly newsletter went out this morning.
Yes, so please check it out. And when we're all back on campus in the fall, please stop by. Looking forward to seeing real people again. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.